Hello and welcome to today's podcast. We're going to dive into a really common parenting challenge, which is when kids refuse to eat dinner, but they still want dessert. This situation, look, it can be really frustrating, but we're going to explore some strategies just to ensure, that your child is actually well nourished and develops a healthy relationship with food, which is always our end game, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally. So the first thing is to kind of acknowledge kids go through growth spurts.
Yeah.
So sometimes their hunger is going to be off the charts.
Yep.
And sometimes they're just not going to want to eat so much.
Yep.
So knowing that they are going to have those peaks and troughs,
Yep.
kind of across their childhood.
Absolutely.
And that it's okay for them to kind of it's actually really helpful for them to tap into their own hunger and fullness cues. So that's why we never want to say finish your full plate or eat everything on your plate, because we want them to go, no, I've had enough.
Yeah.
As parents, it is really important that we provide our kids with a variety of food that best nourish their growing bodies. So balanced meals with a mix of proteins, fats, and carbohydrates are really important for every part of their development.
Yeah.
And so this is where getting out of this habit of kids just wanting dessert or only giving them dessert is super important.
Yeah.
For their
You've got to
mood
be able to
swings.
trust them, don't you, to eat the amount that feels right.
Yes.
But based on a good balanced meal, not
Exactly.
based on dessert.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it can be hard, to think, I just want them to eat something.
Yes.
As long as they eat something. For me, I think they're better to not eat anything than eat a really sugary dessert after tea, to be honest. If they're saying I'm not full, I don't want dinner, I'm not going to want them to have I'm not hungry, sorry. Yes, I'm not hungry. Yeah. So there's a lot of talk at the moment around letting kids be intuitive eaters, and I really believe in supporting kids to be intuitive eaters. What's really important to know that intuition's really different to our primitive brain reacting to something, or when foods or like screen time, social media, it's very addictive. So I just want to kind of make that.
And you can't be intuitive if you're addicted to something or being driven by primitive instinct.
Exactly. So to support your kid to develop healthy intuitive behaviour, it's important they've got a solid foundation in healthy food.
Yeah.
So they know how they feel when they eat healthy food.
Yeah.
So they can kind of know how they feel when they don't.
Yeah.
That kind of is how they develop that intuitive eating.
Yep.
And for me, I would think more of the intuitive eating around I'm full, I've had enough food at a young age, rather than flavors that they want. I think where our brain is too driven by the fat and the sweet.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
That primitive brain.
Yep.
So just want to make sure you're really clear on that. I think intuitive around I'm full or I'm not that hungry, different to flavors.
Yes, absolutely.
And that we need to help them get a really solid foundation on healthy food and how they feel on a healthy food diet.
I think there's even a lot of adults that can't or find it very difficult to eat intuitively.
Definitely.
So we can't expect our kids to just know how to eat intuitively when, like you said, if there are foods in the mix that stimulate those primitive parts of the brain.
Definitely. And I think for an adult, you're setting your kid up as a child to be an intuitive eater as an adult.
Yes.
I think intuition.
That's the goal.
Yeah. It's like, even when I think of a child's brain, our brains don't fully develop until we're in our late 20s.
Yeah.
So expecting kids to make choices on healthy food and to kind of choose a healthy food over a dessert, it's just not going to happen. They're always going to kind of choose that sweet.
Even for my kids who have been raised with a great food culture when they were little, they wouldn't have always made the choice to eat dinner before dessert.
Yeah.
If they were given an option, they would have dived straight into dessert.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
And, look, I think also when our kids are stuck in that primitive brain, and this can be all the time for some kids or even occasional for other kids, like off the back of Christmas or holidays Easter. Or birthdays or celebrations. Yeah, Easter's a big one, definitely.
Yeah.
When your kids are consuming a lot of sweet or refined carbohydrate and perhaps not enough protein, their primitive brain gets activated. And this part of the brain can overpower their thinking brain. So even if they do know that what healthy foods are and what they feel like, when they're being driven by that primitive part of their brain, it's responsible. The thinking brain is responsible for decision making and self-control, but they're being driven by their primitive brain.
Yeah.
And, like an addict, they can become really tenacious about seeking out more sweets and more refined carbohydrates and badgering you for just dessert rather than dinner.
Yeah.
Then dessert.
Yeah.
And, this behaviour, it's biological. It's not behavioural. It is actually biological.
Definitely. And it's so important. Like, for me, it's like, oh, what's the big so I can imagine some people saying, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
But it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
When you stack up, when you think of what sugar does to hormones.
But also by just giving your kids dessert, then you're actually just perpetuating that primitive part of the brain. You're actually not allowing their biology to regulate so that they do. I even know, as a person who understands health inside out, that if I eat a lot of, junk food, if I even have a few meals, like if we're on holiday and I'm not eating as well as I would normally eat, more carbohydrate, hot chips or whatever your kind of thing is, I will start to crave that food more in increasing amounts.
Yeah.
So, again, our children are the same, except their logical brain is not as developed, I don't think.
Yeah, no, that's it. They don't.
And they rely on us for that directive.
They can't join the dots like we can. They
Exactly.
can't join the dots that if I eat this chocolate cake and this ice cream, then I'm going to go up.
Yep.
I'm going to be manic.
Yep.
I'm going to be really excited.
Yep.
And then I'm going to crash.
Yes.
They can't join that dot.
No.
And we've got to help. We've got to do that for them.
Yes.
And that's where like I was saying before, like it doesn't seem like a big deal, but in a little kid's body, it is a big deal.
Absolutely.
Because the food really influences their behavior.
Yes.
And then their behavior, when they get in trouble for it, then it can kind of lead to all these other things like, oh, I'm a bad kid, or
absolutely.
And it's like, and that instability, when their blood sugar levels are all over the place, and then their behavior's all over the place,
absolutely.
and nobody feels good in that. So it's like it seems like a small thing, but it's actually a big thing especially over time.
Yeah.
So really important with meals to kind of have a structure that kids can rely on, and just that a kind of a matter of fact, this is just how it is.
Yep.
Yeah, so we eat all our dinner first, and then maybe there's dessert.
Yep. So it's there's a logical sequence. Like, we need to teach our kids the logical sequence of things, because like I said before, even my healthy kids who have a good understanding of food, they have been taught that logical sequence of things.
Yes.
Had I just let them trust their intuition, they wouldn't have that logical sequence. And I mean, we as parents, we do this in all parts of our kids' development. When they first start showering themselves, we teach them that first you get in the shower and you wet yourself, then you add the soap, and then you dry yourself. That's the logical sequence. You don't get in the shower, wet yourself, dry yourself, then add the soap. It's like that's just the sequence of events. So our kids need to understand, like you said, that first we eat dinner, then we have dessert.
And
if that's the way it is in your family, obviously.
Yeah, and even have the reasoning behind it.
Yes.
Like when we've got a good amount of protein in our bodies and we've got some veggies in our bodies, and then we have something that's got more sugar, our body has more capacity to deal with that sugar.
Yeah, we biologically, once again, don't get that massive high and crash that you've spoken about a moment ago.
Yeah.
And, you don't get the behavioural mood implications of that by having that foundation of protein in their bellies before they have dessert. So, again, even biologically, that logical sequence for meals is
really
actually really important. Yeah.
But it's something I used to talk to my kids about, that, like sugar does this to us.
Yeah.
And so we eat a good meal before we have sugar so it doesn't have such a big impact on us.
Yeah.
And even, if maybe they did have sugar, like if they had something out and they did do the up and the down and, man, Mum, I don't feel well. And it's like, I wonder if it's it's from this.
Yeah,
and that
you help
this is
connect the dots.
Yeah, this is what happens to me if I just have sugar without any good food in my belly.
Yes.
I get dizzy and I just don't feel good.
Yeah.
And it's not being, I told you so. It's not that. It's just, helping them join the dots. Yeah. So they can develop the intuitive eating later.
Yeah, and I know before you said, the logical sequence is that we tell our kids first we eat our dinner and then we have dessert, but it's not a conditional reward, is it?
No, I think this is a huge thing. And I don't know why in our culture we do it. Like dessert's such a big deal. And it's like, eat all your dinner and then you can have your dessert. Or that sweet things are...
Or that you don't get dessert unless you eat your dinner.
Yeah,
it's a big mistake to say that, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Well, I think it limits your food culture in your house. And I think having a food culture where your kids love all different foods and don't
and that
just
dessert
look
isn't
forward,
the prize, like you said.
Yeah, don't just look forward to the chocolate cake, but look forward to the lasagna. Like, oh, yum, beautiful creamy lasagna, broadening their kind of vision of what good food is, that it's not just something sweet or chocolate.
And look, and even I found myself falling into that trap of glorifying the treat.
Yeah.
The treat. It's like, let's go and have an ice cream. We don't, say, let's go home and eat a plate of lasagna. It's not the same. There's not often the same enthusiasm. And as I said, no judgments intended here. I've 100% done that myself.
Yeah.
Where I've really glorified the foods that I don't want my kids loving.
Yeah.
But it is very cultural, like you said. It is part of our culture. It's how we were perhaps raised as well. I know I was definitely raised with treat foods being kind of exciting and something that we needed to look forward.
Then, hey?
True, it absolutely was.
And whether that's what it was about, because I think of me and our family, and there's like my kids would much rather a seafood marinara than a bit of chocolate cake.
Yes, yeah.
So it's kind of
mine are similar.
It's just interesting how we have kind of glorified it. And I guess my invitation is to not do that anymore.
Yes.
To build the food culture around, amazing seafood marinara or whatever you love.
Yes.
Rather than the sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. And food it's never a reward or punishment, is it?
No, super, super important never to set that up. It's just disastrous for their relationship with food, for their relationship with you, for them ever developing capacity to be an intuitive eater. I would never, ever use food as a reward or a punishment. It's kind of you never want any emotion around food. It's just like, this is what our bodies need to be healthy and strong. And this is why we eat what we eat, and this is where it comes from. And it's kind of developing a curiosity and an interest and exploration around food. And that food often relates to us being together.
Yes.
And us enjoying one another's company. Yeah.
Do you have dessert in your household?
We don't. And we never really have. We've never, I don't know why, it's just never been a thing. We have a big dinner, like protein, lots of veggies, but no, we've never really been dessert people. We have cake at birthdays and we're just not. It's just not.
No, we're much the same, actually. Yeah, for me, if I've recipe tested something sweet, excuse me, we'll have dessert. But yeah, I think that, we need to think that if you are having dessert every night, do you need to have dessert every night? Is that just a habit that you've fallen into?
Yeah, and especially if your kids are just wanting dessert.
Yes, exactly.
To support that primitive brain, it might be a good idea to remove the dessert, or have the dessert simpler, like a really plain yogurt with nuts or something like that.
Excuse me, having a coughing fit here in the middle of a podcast.
So, and I guess that's what we would agree with, is that you see if you can skip dessert. And this isn't about punishing the kids, but it's about resetting their biology. So they're going to be less inclined to crave sweet food and kind of shifting things up. So the focus isn't on the dessert in the meal, but the focus is on the meal and being together.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing from my perspective is just looking at what your child's been eating throughout the day. If they're only wanting dessert, have they had well-balanced meals? I know when my daughter used to go to daycare, and, I could tell what she'd eaten in the course of a day without even looking at the chart that told me what she'd eaten.
Yeah.
But, just by the way she was at dinner time.
Yeah.
If she'd had, they'd served up like a pasta dish and she'd had lots of bread and dessert and crackers, or if there'd been a birthday, she might not eat that well at dinner or actually might not want dinner at all.
Yeah.
I also really recommend starting the day with a savoury, like a protein-rich breakfast.
Yep.
That can really set the tone for more balanced eating throughout the day without any cravings for sweet things.
Yeah. Protein's powerful, isn't it?
It is.
With that craving for sweet. I just think of myself, because I can have a sweet tooth. And if I've had those 3 just protein-rich meals through the day, I'm just...
You're good.
Satiated.
Yep.
I'm clearer. I'm just more regulated, more solid in myself. So food has a huge impact on us, and even bigger on our kids.
Yeah,
their
absolutely.
Tiny little bodies. So with meal times, it is important to kind of be really clear about, we eat our dinner and this is why, and that you are firm with boundaries. And this can be hard when they're like, I just want dessert. And it's like, yeah, I hear you. And just having dessert isn't good for your body. So you need to have dinner to be able to support your body to deal with the sugar that's in the dessert. And it's doing all the education and setting all the expectations, or being really clear when your kids are calm. And when they are kind of regulated, well-fed, well-rested.
Not at the time, not when you're actually sitting at the table and they're screeching at you for
not at
for
the
dessert.
time. Not at the time. So if you can see, and generally you can, you might have had a challenging day, or your kids are a bit more ratty than normal, maybe they haven't had enough protein through the day. If you know that, I would recommend not bringing out a dessert, so they don't even know what's coming, so you're not even planting that in their head. So you're kind of more focusing with your child on, we're going to have this yummy chicken and veggies tonight. What do you want to help me with the veggies, or what do you want to add to the veggies? So you kind of set yourselves up for more success when it's you're already feeling this strain. It's kind of thinking ahead.
Definitely.
So not talking about the cake or the dessert before dinner. Not having that the main thing, or having that where they can see it,
or like we said before, just having that break with dessert and telling the family, if this is becoming a reoccurring theme, telling the family, like, look, from now on, we're not going to just have dessert with dinner or after dinner. We're going to let's just see, if we can enjoy our meal. And like you said, not make it a punishment or a thing that has happened because they've done something wrong. It's just this is the way we thought we would trial this and see how we feel.
Yeah. And you can go right back to basics, like, because sometimes, like, why doesn't your kid want to eat the meal? What's happening for them? If they had are they feeling really stressed, so their stomach's tight, so they can't eat? Or is there something about the dinners that they're just not enjoying? So you can get, when you're both calm, you can get curious about it. What do you like to eat for dinner? Let's have a few more of the things you like as well as the things that I like and Dad likes. And so it's kind of going back to the basics and building blocks again.
Yeah. And obviously no replacement meals are offered, are they?
Yeah.
When I just think that just sets up that cycle of picky eating and reinforces that idea that they can hold out for their preferred food instead of and eventually get what they want, or as I said, get a replacement meal. Instead, and we've talked about this a lot in other podcasts, offering, a variety of foods at each meal and encouraging them just to try everything.
Yeah.
And there'll always be foods that you offer that hopefully they enjoy.
Yeah.
And then we also suggest offering foods that perhaps that they might not enjoy so much.
Yeah.
But continuing to expose them to those foods is really, really important.
Yeah. And I just want to acknowledge, I know this isn't easy.
No.
Especially at some times in your kid's life where it's just, God, it can just feel like a drama.
And sometimes it is just easier to give in, but holding firm with those boundaries is so important, because I know
short-term pain for long-term gain.
Absolutely, because it's not even just about that boundary, is it? Because it becomes about all boundaries.
It leaks out everywhere.
Yeah.
And you don't do them any favours.
No, no.
Yeah. Health-wise and behaviour-wise.
Yeah. So, look, navigating this challenge of kids wanting dessert but not wanting to eat dinner, I think it definitely requires patience, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Consistency. And again, that focus on providing some balanced nutrition during the day.
Yeah, and you being really clear on why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing this to be mean. I'm not doing this for any other reason other than for their long-term health and well-being.
Yeah. And teaching them that, just like we said before, the logical meal sequences, setting firm boundaries.
Yeah.
And, with all of those things combined, you should be able to help your child, help in the long term. Like, this is not, a short-term game. This is a long game.
Yeah.
But, you can really make some positive steps to helping your child develop healthy eating habits, which is what we all want to do, that, serve them well through the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So, thanks for joining us today.
Yes.
Hopefully that has been insightful and given you some ideas if this is a problem that you've suffered with.
Yeah.
And just, keep going. Be persistent, little steps.
Yeah, little steps.